boy. I welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Underpowered podcast and live stream. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is a different kind of thing today. I don't know if I'm ready to do this episode because I feel like it's sort of important, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, welcome in. For those of you that don't know, this is the Underpowered podcast and live stream. We do variety streams. We play all kinds of games. Pokemon, Warzone, anything you can think of. Resident Evil, backlog games. We do Chrono Trigger, Half-Life 2. So many things going on this channel. And I had said last night that I was going to be taking a little bit of a break from streaming on the regular. But this is one that I really wanted to do because I think it's very personal to me. And we hit a huge milestone today, this morning. You'll see I have my 2 grapes here. We started essentially back in June. I mean, the channel's been alive for about 2 years. The podcast has been alive for about 2 years and all the channels and socials, but I joined them 2 years. I joined them in June, and we pretty much started from zero. I mean, really about 100 views or so, and we went from 100 views as a team to 100 views to 100,000 on YouTube. So we just hit that today. And this is probably going to be, so that's super exciting. And we probably have about 50,000 views on TikTok, but I didn't think that was possible. And this entire project has been something that I didn't know. I just jumped into it as a creative endeavor and just from scratch, learning how to do things from scratch. And I didn't think that this was possible. So, I'm going to turn this off. So, this episode is very special. This is going to be the Underpowered Origins sort of philosophy episode for me. And after I do this episode, I'll be doing occasional streams for December, but I'll be coming back with a game plan in January for how I want to tackle the new year and the direction that I want to go and what I want to be doing. So, where should we start here? There was this really great video. I'm looking at it now, and it came out in 2012. No, it wasn't 2012, 2011, which I'll link it here in the chat. And this episode today is sort of going to be a homage to that show. Linked it here in the chat, which is one of my favorite content creators of all time. I've written an article about him, and he was really nice and responded. Day 9. And he did a episode when he got to daily 100, when he pretty much got to episode 100, that detailed his life playing StarCraft and how he grew up and what he went through and all the different tournaments and things that he did, and essentially came around at the end of the episode and sort of tied it all together for why it's important to enjoy what you do. And so this episode is going to be my version of that. This is going to be my version of that, and it's going to kind of pay homage to that episode. But yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to do this. I had taken a bunch of notes, but I'm just going to do it because I just think it's important, and I'd like to have it for history's sake, and I'd like to be able to go back and rewatch this and show this to my son. Let me put some of my work stuff away. So gaming is an interesting thing, right? And you have to, for those of you who are young, who watch this on VOD, catch it at another time, you have to understand that gaming was not gaming was not what it is right now, right? Right now, um, everyone that you know plays some kind of game. Maybe they don't play Xbox, maybe they play PC, maybe they play PlayStation, maybe they, like my wife, play phone games, Candy Crush or whatever it is. Farmville, I don't even know if Farmville's still a thing. But either way, everyone plays games. But back when I was growing up, um, it was much more of a niche thing. It wasn't something that everyone did. It was a select, maybe 50%, maybe 30% of the people played games. It was still sort of pushed out as this sort of dorky thing that people did. And I was always into it. I had a regular Nintendo. I had a Super Nintendo. We were the family. We were always sort of one system behind, and we had very limited time to play video games. So when I was really young, um, video games were this sort of treat. We hear all the 30-year-olds now joke about Blockbuster Video, but that was real. We would go to Blockbuster Video and we would borrow a game and we would have everyone come over to your house and play it. And we would have just this amazing time. And it was really, really fun. So that's sort of the origin for me, was Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo, playing Mario. We had an exchange student when I was young who came over from Japan, and he brought with him a sort of converter that allowed you to convert Japanese Super Nintendo games to work on the US console. And that was a great way, to bond, even cross-culturally, right? It was just like we were playing Mario, we were playing King Griffey Jr. Baseball. What I'm going to hope to accomplish by the end of the discussion today, and this will probably be a short stream, and then I'm going to play some video games myself, or maybe go relax after all of this, is to kind of show you how games have ebbed and flowed through my life, how they've been really positive, how they've been somewhat negative, how my relationship with games has changed and integrated, and some of the solutions that I've come up with as I've gotten older, right, to integrate gaming, right, in a way that was sort of meaningful and helpful for me. So this story is going to have some turbulence in it. I should warn you now. And it's all meant to sort of show you the power of games, power of video games, the power of connecting with your friends, the power of community building, and give you a little bit of an origin story for me in relation to video games, that is. So when I was young, I played them a lot. And I didn't play them a lot. I played them the limited amount of time that I was allowed to play them, because the older generation is very skeptical of video games, and it was something new and novel, and they didn't really like it. But then when I was almost a teenager, some pretty terrible things happened. So let me eat my grapes. I had a stepmother, and she had cancer. And we would go to the hospital twice a week, almost every week for several years. And when we went there, they had a Super Nintendo. And that Super Nintendo was there, and it really took what was really a stressful time and made it just a little bit more bearable. So as I got older, right, video games became sort of a security blanket for me and a way for me to kind of rebalance myself and to refocus myself when I was feeling chaotic. And having them there when I was young like that really kind of saved me in such a way, because I had this stable thing, these environments I could explore, these rules within games that were clear and concise, that you could go and you could understand the environments really easily, and it would help stabilize me. So when I was young, that was what really helped me. When I became a teenager, right, video games started to sort of become mainstream. in, at least for us in the US, when Halo came out, right? Because when Halo came out, and I was a teenager, late teenager at that time, there was this big shift, right? There was this big shift, and everybody realized the capacity of this machine and realized that games could be this way more than just a 2D platformer. And everybody sort of started jumping on it, right? In my 20s, in my early 20s, I can remember going to midnight launches and waiting in line for video games and all of this community building, right? Now, as games have moved more online, it's become that community sort of has dissipated into a bunch of really tiny micro communities. But back when I was in my 20s, that was a huge motivator for me. So when I turned 20, right, I played video games. I got the new I don't know what was it? PS2 Slimline. I got God of War, the original. I moved into my own place, and I was really introverted and struggled a lot with making friends, believe it or not. And video games and the content creators around them in my 20s really helped me get beyond that social anxiety and just sort of enjoy what I enjoyed. StarCraft 2 is a huge one for me because StarCraft 2 was a game that they really went when I played StarCraft the original. So here's the StarCraft original story. This was another major pivotal moment in my life. When I was like 13, we went to Costco, and maybe I don't know if I was exactly 13, but no, maybe I was older than that. Maybe I was 14 or 15 or 16. But either way, we went to Costco, and they had this computer game there, which was the Battle Chest. The Battle Chest was StarCraft Brood War, and the two Prima strategy guides. And those two strategy guides, it was there. It was like $20. And, I never asked for anything from anybody. And I asked my dad, hey, can I get this? And he thought about it for a minute and said, yeah, and he got it. And he bought it for me. And it was so impactful because I went home and I played it. And I just remember just being absorbed into the lore. But I was really afraid to play online, right? I was really afraid to jump onto servers, and I didn't know what I was doing with computers, and I felt intimidated by the whole thing. So I really just played custom games. Now, in my 20s, when StarCraft 2 came out, they fixed that with Wings of Liberty, because all you had to do was push play, and you were thrown into a league, and all these content creators started coming out because at that time, right, YouTube was first getting popular. So StarCraft and YouTube sort of went hand in hand, and it really, in YouTube's early days, when StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty was coming out, having all of these sportscasters and having all these content creators feed tons of content into the machine was really helpful for YouTube, I think. And I just absorbed the ball. And that's when I discovered sort of Day 9's video, and I started watching a lot of his dailies and improving my game as I was playing StarCraft 2. I was a chef, and I would get off really late at night. I'd get off at 1 in the morning, and I would come home and I would be wired. And rather than drinking or staying out real late every single night, not that I never did that, but rather than go out, I would come in, right? I would come home at 1. I would eat some food. I would watch some Day 9 for an hour. And then I would turn around and I would play StarCraft for an hour or two until almost 4 or 5 in the morning. And towards the end of this video that I watched of his, I remember him saying something about like being really into what you're into. And I remember going back to work the next day after that. And I said, I'm really into this thing. I'm really into playing games. I really love playing video games. I just really enjoy it. And there was another guy there, and he was like, hey man, me too. I really like that game too. And that was kind of how I made one of my first, 5 friends that I still am friends with to this day, through gaming, right? Now, into my 20s, right, I played games, and I would beat everything, right? Play Elder Scrolls, play Resident Evil, play Call of Duty, whatever it was, Madden. But into my 30s, it changed a little bit because I had a family, I had my son, I didn't have as much time, and I really was struggling with like what do I do with this thing, right? Like what do I do with games? What do I do with gaming? Like this is a hobby that takes a long time, right? Do I just like play until 1 or 2 in the morning every night? I don't know what to do. And I went through a phase in my early 30s where I wasn't playing as many games because I had this thing, right, that was sort of a security blanket for me that had gotten me through a lot of turbulence in my life, that had been a pillar of stability, that had helped me develop friends, but that I also would like kind of sink into when I didn't know what to do. So there you have things now. The gaming world is different now. We don't have, before you would buy Game Informer. Everyone sort of has their own way of getting what they want as far as like, who do you get your gaming advice from? Where do you actually go? What site do you go to when you want to play a new game? How do you know? Most of it is still talking with friends, but where do you get your source information from, right? It feels to me like that community-driven element of like bringing a bunch of people together to talk about the same thing, to say, hey, I'm really interested in this, and hey, I'm really interested in this too. I was searching for that. And I found that through Underpowered. So one thing I will say is this. I was a chef for a long time. And then when my son was born, I stopped being a chef. And I stopped that just because there were only so many hours in the day. And I really it was very, very important to me to be able to have a life with my son. And so I made the switch, right? But what had happened was anything that you know about cooking or highly intense creative work, whether that's performing music or doing improv or stand-up comedy, is that when you take away that creative element, initially your body sort of like heals itself because you're pushing really hard on something creatively and then you stop and then you go, I don't know what to do now. And then for a while it's cool, right? For a while you're just able to exist and you're able to just chill. But then you start searching, or at least I started searching for meaning somewhere else, right? And so I've done many other creative things in my life. I've been a writer, right? Published in, I think, about 40 articles in magazines. I've done a podcast of my own. I've made YouTube videos. I was searching for some sort of creative endeavor. But at the same time, I was searching for a sense of community. And I know that I am not the only one who feels that way. I know that we are sort of looking for a connection. So for me, the way that I have found to integrate gaming into my life long term is to work on creative projects. Now, I think I mentioned this yesterday, that I should warn you that sometimes when you start on a creative project, right, very rarely what someone will say to you is, this sucks. Like, I don't even know if I've ever heard someone come forward and say, this is really terrible. Mostly what you'll get is, I think, a little bit worse. Because when you start something creatively that's brand new and you're unsure of where it's going to go, the initial response is a ton of excitement is drummed up, right? Oh, so-and-so is working on this new thing. When I started creating content, I don't even want to call it content. I started just like, I need a new outlet for something creatively. So I'm like, well, I like gaming. I had this really pivotal moment where I've had 3 friends. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't talk to them much anymore, but one of them I do, but 3 friends at that time who gave me fundamentally good advice. Very first YouTube video I ever made that was a video that I pushed publish on was this gameplay of this video game called Coral. And Coral was sort of this really beautiful sort of propaganda, not necessarily in a bad way, but propaganda-y game about saving the coral reef, right? It was really cool. It had really cool music, really cool art design. And I literally just played the game and then did some audio dialogue and then pushed publish. I didn't know how to use Streamlabs that well. I didn't know how to talk in front of a camera. I just pushed publish. And I thought, and then my thought process behind it was, well, what I'm going to do is I get bored with games, so I'm going to play indie games, and that will sort of be my niche, right? And it was good logic and ended up being inaccurate because it wasn't exactly what it was that I was trying to accomplish. But I published this video and it was really bad. It was really bad. And I had this friend who, his name was Brandon, and he watched it. I sent it to him and he watched it. And he actually watched it. And he said, dude, I watched the whole thing and it was like it was really good. And like this is what was really good about it, and this is what was really good about it, and this was really good about it. And I knew it was really bad. I knew it was really bad. And I know, like, looking back now at my development with this project, I know that was bad. But at that time, I was so vulnerable that I needed that sort of guidance from him. And I ended up making another. I had another friend who said to me when I was learning to write, he said he read my rough draft and he actually read it and said, this is a good foundation and it needs more work. And I had another friend who said, hey, I'm tuning into each of your videos. And one of the biggest mistakes I made early in some of my early projects was that I made these podcast episodes that were really meaningful to me. And they may not necessarily have been very good, but they were really meaningful to me because I was challenging myself to evolve into something different through gaming and through discussions with people. And this was a side project that I had done. And I would go on to the YouTube analytics and I would look at the viewer retention. And I would have all these people who were telling me how awesome this was, that I was doing this thing. And then the retention would be like 35 seconds in an hour and a half long episode. And what that means in layman's terms is like people are really supportive, but your stuff is not that good, but they don't want to tell you, hey, this is kind of boring. So I ended up getting really discouraged by it and quitting doing it because at that time I was lost. I wasn't a chef anymore. I needed some creative wins in my belt, and I've gotten those now through writing. But my sidebar here would be to say to you that if you know somebody who is working on something personal to them, maybe it's writing, maybe it's music, maybe it's, I don't know, painting, and they're just like, you can tell that they're trying to figure something out, and they're in a really particularly vulnerable space. The best thing that you can do as a friend would be to go engage with what they're doing and support them. Because those early days of creating things can be an extremely vulnerable time. And I know that they were for me. I have always tried to look for a way to integrate gaming into my life. And that's where we are now in my 30s, where for the last 5 years, I have been doing different creative endeavors, whether it's podcasts or video game streams. And I've been trying to put the pieces together. And I think I think I'm saying that not from an ego-driven place, but I think there's a lot of people who are in a similar boat. I think that there are a lot of people who, um, I think that there are a lot of people who have this thing and they don't really know what to do with it in gaming. And as they get older, they go, like, especially if you don't have time, right? Because that's the thing. A new game comes out as a 35-year-old and you have a family and then everyone's beaten it and you haven't even started it yet and you're like, well, I might as well not play that. I feel like I missed the boat on that. So then but I kind of want to, right? So it's like, well, am I just going to go to the bargain bin and play free games, right? A lot of what I've done has just been like, that's a huge part of the reason why I play battle royales, right? Warzone, Fortnite, whatever it is, because they're timeless, right? You can jump on there. There's a community on there, right? I didn't buy God of War, the new God of War, and I feel like already, right? I've missed that boat, right? Like it's over. People have beat it. They've produced all the content they're going to produce, all the walkthroughs, all of the talking about how awesome it is. And so, like, even it's only been a month, right? And so there is a big struggle when you go from your 20s where you have a lot more time and less responsibility and you can just play. I can sit down. I mean, I remember sitting down and beating Halo in one shot, right? Just like Halo 4, just clean it, like 1 8 hour sitting. I got up like super early in the morning and I like did all my chores, did everything on my day off that I needed to do, and then just gamed all the way through. And you can't do that anymore. So there has to be some sort of an adjustment. So the adjustment for me has been to create, content and to do something that I can develop a skill at that's meaningful. And that has really helped me. And that has being here with Underpowered and working on this brand with these guys and doing these things and creating these shorts and working on video editing and learning these things has added value to my life. I have more skills. It has allowed me to take more risks. I've gotten a few wins, like I've said, under my belt, and has allowed me to move forward with, okay, let's try a different project. Even if I have an hour a day, let's try a different project. Whereas, when I first started with that first choral video, I don't even know if I still have it on my YouTube page anymore. I probably removed it. There's a strong desire for me to be competent. And if I look back at those first videos and I look back even in the last 6 months with Underpowered, right? I look back at what we started off with, what I started off with, and the compilation videos and the shorts, and just from clipping things on a free clips website to like actually using a video editor and developing skills has helped me. And that's really how I've integrated gaming into my life. It's gotten me excited. I was able to justify right in my own head, okay, hey, I'm going to get a PS5 so that I can use that as a tool. Now, for some people, they don't have that problem, right? They do have a problem. My hair is so incredibly long. It's ridiculous. I got to get it cut. Some people, they don't have this issue. And if this issue isn't for you, I understand, right? But like I think there's a lot more people, especially in their 30s, who are trying to piece together, what do I do with this? What do I do with gaming, right? When I was young, right, I played these games, right? Then I became a teenager and I played more complex games, right? Then I was in my 20s and I had all this time and I just like really was in the community hard, right? Now I'm in my 30s or in my 40s. What am I going to do here, right? Like, what am I going to do, right? How am I going to provide some sort of value? So that would be my advice to you. My advice to you would, like, you have a lot more control than you think you do, and to go out and try things. My life has not always been easy. Gaming has always been that security blanket for me and has always been something that I fell back on. The things that make gaming so unique, right? There's a stand-up comedian. I don't remember what the meme said, but the stand-up comedian said that, oh man, I wish I could find it and show it to you. Maybe I'll find it later and post it in the chat. But essentially he said that video games are one of the only mediums that if you don't show competency in the thing that you're trying to do, you don't get to go on to the next level, right? Like if you read it, I think his example was if you read a book and you had to do a book report at the end, a book report at the end of every chapter, and you had to answer questions at the end of every chapter on every single book before you got to move on. That would be the equivalent, and I agree with that. Gaming allows you to play out different moral situations and see what you would do, competing through a community, going to tournaments. When I was to harken back, right, like when I was in my 20s, watching the Dota, sitting on the back dock after a brunch, watching the Dota finals. This is such a unique medium that no one has had to deal with in this way, that I don't think that we fully respect how difficult it is to integrate this into our lives, right? Because gaming has been the catalyst for all of my friendships. It has been a lot of my personal development and successes have been through games, but it has also been something for which I have retreated into in an unhealthy way, right? When I should have been dealing with things that I wasn't dealing with. So the moral of the story is that's my origin story. I had sort of a turbulent childhood. By the time you're 35, we've all had our little slice of fun in life, and gaming was there for me, and I grew up playing them. I'm going to continue to play them. I'm going to continue to work on creative projects and find a way to fit the pieces of the puzzle together. And I encourage you, if you're watching this, to do the same. If there's something that's not gaming that you're interested in, that you just want to try for an hour a day, we built 100,000 views, and I worked, if you average it out, probably less than an hour a day for 7 days a week. And we went from 0 to 100,000, knowing nothing about anything, knowing nothing about thumbnails, SEO, algorithms, just like posting content, seeing how it does. So I would encourage you, if you have a creative endeavor that you want to embark on, you should try it. It's going to go a lot better than you think. There's a lot of free tools out there that you can use. I encourage you to watch the Day 9 Daily 100 that I posted in the chat if you haven't seen it, for a little extra motivation. And yeah, go out and make some things, and you will find, as you develop skills, right, you will find growth in that. I've found growth in that. So that's it for me. That's my origin. Here we are. I'm going to be signing off for a while and taking a break for a little bit. I have really enjoyed this process. I have really enjoyed making content. Life is not easy, right? And I don't need to tell you that, but life is not easy. And there have to be some things in your life that make suffering worth it, that make enduring getting up every single day worth it. And I hope that you can find something, whether it's taking a risk in writing a blog post. I wrote on a sidebar, as stories come to me, and this is why I had wanted to do enough research, but I also knew that if I didn't just push go live, this episode never would have been done, and I just would have continued to stall on it. The moral of all of this is taking healthy risks can and will, if you do it in a healthy way, fundamentally change who you are. One of the first risks that I ever took, right, was completing Tough Mudder with my friends. I felt a lot of peer pressure from my friends to do Tough Mudder, and when I finally did it, I felt such a sense of overwhelming euphoria about not completing the race, but by doing this thing that I had been super afraid of. Same thing with writing. I researched, just got on Google, how do I post on Medium? I wrote 60, 70 articles, 80 articles. I never made more than 35 cents on Medium. But Medium served as a resume for other places, right? I took the risk. I reached out to a local magazine and I said, here's some writing samples I'd love to write for free, which led to paid writing, right? Which led to getting paid. Told people, hey, I'm working on this thing, right? Or I've done this before. And that led me to coming here. And so I would encourage you, if you're feeling discouraged, if you're feeling like just speaking up and coming out there and saying, like, I want to do this or I want to try this. I may not 100% know why. I think we often look at the end result. I mean, I know that we do this, right? We look at the end result and then we see how these people, they made it. And then we go see how far away we are. I used to have social media on my phone and now I don't, right? And I would look at, whoever's, whether it was The Rock or Gary Vee or whoever, and I would feel the opposite of encouraged because I would see so much work that needed to be done that I would go, well, I'm never going to be able to do this. And the minute I got rid of all that and I just started working in my own circle and looking around and going like, can I have an opportunity? Can I have an opportunity? Can I have an opportunity? Then I started having things happen, and I had some failures, right? Like I wrote for this. During COVID, I was writing because I didn't have work, and I started writing for this guy, and I was writing for this. He gave me a job, offered me a job, and it was like $125 an article, and I just like really didn't enjoy the work. I mean, I went from zero, right? Like I had never written even a 3-paragraph essay. And here I was like not working, just like I'm going to learn how to do this skill. I have all this time on my hands. I'm going to learn this skill. And I started working for this guy and I wrote the first article and he messaged me and was like, we aren't a good fit. And he paid me out. He was nice enough and he paid me out, but there were failures along the way, right? And all of these YouTube videos that I've done and all these podcasts that I've done and all these episodes that I've done, they're not quite it, right? Like they're not quite exactly nailed into what I'm should be working on, right? And that is even within like finding my niche, even within the Underpowered logo, right? What are we going to do next? What's the project that we're going to work on, right? Figuring like everything is just tweaking a little bit, but you're going to find, and I know that I'm going to find in a few years' time that I'm in a completely different place than I was when I first started these projects. So I would just continue to encourage you to be into what you're into. And when you're done with it, be done with it. And if you want to try something, go try it. Like you literally have nothing to lose. So life has not been easy for me. And I've never had a ton of money. I've always had just enough to get by. But I've always generated opportunities for myself by being willing to approach people and say, I can do this. So I hope that you can find a hobby. I would love to know once this gets posted onto YouTube. I would love to know how you integrate your hobbies or your interests into your life. And I would love to know what you've done as you've gotten older, because this is more of an older person problem, right? Like when you are young, like I've said several times during the show, you just don't you're not thinking about these things. You're not thinking about these things. You're thinking about different things. But when you start to get older, you start going, I have a limited amount of time. And how am I going to integrate what I'm working on into my life if I only have, 200 hours left to work on something? So continue to work on your hobbies, continue to take risks. Just know that you can do it. Trust me when I say this, I am dumb. And if I can figure it out, like you can figure it out. Stay encouraged. Don't get caught up in the metrics. This is something I have to tell myself every single day. And I struggle with. I've actually had to remove, right? I've had to remove YouTube analytics off my phone. I don't want to check it anymore because then you start doing it for the numbers as opposed to doing it for the content, to improve the content, to improve, like make it more interesting or provide more value or, right, like make the words better or make your shorts better. So I struggle with that every day too, but keep after it. That is it for me. I hope that somebody finds some value in this, knowing that You're not the only person that wrestles with these ideas. This is what I've chosen to do, and it's helped me a bit figure out what to do with this crazy thing of gaming. Something that I love, something that is just still to this day, 30 years later, like blows my mind. Playing the new Modern Warfare blew my mind, and looking at the graphics and going, wow, this is something that I think no other generation probably has had to wrestle with. And I would be interested to see what everyone else is doing with it. So that's it for me. I won't take any more of your time. I appreciate you. I am out.